Like people come up to me in the street and they're like, "Oh my God, it's Mr. Who's the Boss," and they're like so excited. And it's crazy because it's like 14-year-old me invented that thing that they're saying. So my first viral video ever was how to turn your smartphone into a 3D hologram. And I remember making this video and putting it live while I was at a party. And I thought absolutely nothing of it. I was making like a video every few days at this point. But this video, I was kind of a little bit drunk like in the evening. I remember checking my phone thinking like, this has a little bit more views than I expected, but I wasn't like fully taking it in until I woke up the next morning and my phone had blown up. Like this is the kind of point where you're not getting enough notifications that you're muting your notifications. You're getting every notification. And it was like, I was obsessed with YouTube at this point. Like I was so obsessed with growing this channel that I had charts across my wall and every day I was like checking in on my own progress. So to suddenly see one video perform better than like the 100 videos before, all put together, was like, my body wasn't ready for it. You know what I mean? I was like squealing. I was like running down the stairs. I called my mom. I was like, I've got an email from like BBC News. They want to talk to me. Yeah, it was probably one of the top 5 moments of my life for sure. My entire life up until about the age of 21 was gearing me towards a career in consulting. So I was doing an economics degree. I'd studied lots of like econ and maths and things like that before that. And I feel like, the vast majority of people are kind of being carried. And I certainly was in that position. You just you pick subjects that you're good at, then you pick a degree that lines up with those subjects and you drift, don't you? But YouTube was kind of bubbling up in the background. And the turning point happened when I landed an internship at a company called Price Waterhouse to do consulting, which is what, my whole life had been leading me towards. And I remember being there and I hated it. I was like, I was sitting in meetings and I was just doodling ideas for videos for when I got home. And I think it was definitely, when I looked at the two options on paper, it didn't really make sense to do YouTube. But it was one of those things where one route excites me, one route doesn't. I don't want to regret for the rest of my life not trying. So I made YouTube full time at that point, and I just had so much energy at that point because, I spent the entire time at university doing videos alongside my studies, like squeezing it in every little window. So suddenly having that as my full-time job, I made a video every single day. Like people come up to me in the street and they're like, "Oh my God, it's Mr. Who's the Boss," and they're like so excited. And it's crazy because it's like 14-year-old me invented that thing that they're saying. There was a point where I think I actually started to think a lot about it. I was going to tech events. I was like being on stage sometimes at live events while they're presenting a phone. And I remember thinking, maybe, people won't take me seriously. And like, should I change? I think I even posted out a tweet like, guys, I'm thinking of changing this just to my normal name. What do you think? But then it's YouTube. There's actually something very like personable about the imperfection of it. The same reason why we don't hire a massive garage and like turn it into a studio. We just film videos in our house. It's actually, I think, a big part of why people were drawn to our channel is until we hit about 20 million subscribers, everything was shot in an attic. And attic was my bedroom. So yeah, I think there was a phase where I was questioning it and overthinking it, but no, like would I change anything now? No. I would put myself on the slightly concerned about the future of the internet and tech side. I guess there's a slight tangent, but like when you think about AI, for example, I am like simultaneously very impressed with AI. And when I use it side by side with my work, I feel superhuman, while also looking at like my AI generated feed and not being able to tell real news from fake news, and actually like tangibly being worried about jobs. And like I can so see how it can replace people, and I don't know what a society looks like in which it has replaced them.